When I choose the games I want to play, I generally tend to gravitate toward JRPGs as I've grown up with them, and they were often more prominent on consoles when I was a child. Even as an adult, when a game came out exclusively on PC, I didn't bat an eyelid as I've never been a big PC gamer. Thus, The Witcher is one of many PC games that I hadn't played before, despite the third game in the series being an international success and available on console. Rather than jumping straight into that title, I decided to start all the way back at the series' root with CD Projekt Red's The Witcher, originally released in 2007 and followed up with an enhanced edition in 2008. For the purposes of this review, I played the enhanced edition on medium difficulty. One of the things you may notice straight away when playing The Witcher is that the world is so heavily steeped in detailed lore, with an abundance of information on everything from characters to locations and monster parts. We have Polish author Andrzej Sapkowski to thank for this, as the theme of the game is drawn directly from his fantasy novel and short story series of the same name. What struck me as the most defining feature of the game was that the world isn't one of enduring hope, of people waiting for a savior, knowing that they will have a bright future. Rather, the world of The Witcher is a harsh and bitter one, full of raging monarchs and marauding fantastical beasts, not unlike that of George R.R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire. The Witcher presents to us a world of despair, where people do whatever they can just to get by. It's gritty, unsavory, and bleak. And this was a refreshing contrast to the JRPGs I tend to play that often host morally just cause characters and noble knights. Whilst the environments within The Witcher are quite beautiful, they starkly contrast the narrative of the lives of the general population that live every day in insurmountable fear, whether it be from the blossoming animosity caused by racial discrimination, or the very real monsters that prowl the landscape. We play as Geralt of Rivia, who has recently awoken from a long coma after being dead, struck down by the very thing he was created to protect. You see, Geralt is a Witcher, a genetically enhanced human who can never die from old age or ailment, and can use fantastical magic, potions, and bombs in order to enhance his combat abilities. The price? Impotency, and a long, lonely life of wandering. Whilst Geralt has lived a long time and accomplished many deeds, his incapacitation cost him his memory. Yes, that's right. The amnesiac protagonist is a cliched narrative that is often overplayed, especially in the game sphere. Whilst I would like to say that this game provided a different angle to that narrative device, sadly that's not the case. Often, Geralt's response to a new character's information dump is a monotonous, "I lost my memory." Where is your discretion, Geralt? Don't put everything on the table on your first date. Oh, sorry. I mean, did you really need to tell everyone that the best place to ingest Fistek is through the foreskin?
Not so green I don't know the best way to take Fistek. Fold back your skin and rub.
Where?
Where you can fold back your skin, Jethro.
The game opens in Kaer Morhen, a dilapidated stronghold for witches that has since fallen into disuse after an assault that occurred prior to the game's narrative. Whilst Geralt spends his days recovering and trying to remember who he is, the Citadel is attacked, a fellow witcher killed, and the secrets of the Order stolen by an overzealous mage with a penchant for power. Thus, the story begins with Geralt following the trail of the mage to the plague-stricken city of Vizima to the southwest, where he hopes to reclaim the stolen treasure. Along the way, there will be no shortage of other tasks that he must undertake, all whilst the flames of a political war cinder beneath his feet. The game can be played in one of three ways, two of which are an isometric view, and the third being over the shoulder that takes the player deep into the seat of combat whilst also limiting vision. I played the entire game from one of the isometric views, which controlled almost entirely using just the mouse, with some keyboard input allowing a quick shift of skills or menu navigation. I didn't mind this control style, as I just had to hold down the left mouse button to command Geralt where to go, and he would run as I turned the camera. Clicking the right button would unleash whichever magic spell that I had at the ready. Combat, on the other hand, can be a real janky experience that is about as clumsy as the first time a guy learns to jerk the bratwurst. When you want Geralt to attack an enemy, you must left click on them, which makes him draw his equipped weapon and take a swing. After a set number of swings, the mouse cursor will change to a blazoned sword, which you need to click again for Geralt to continue his attack combo. If you are too slow or too fast, then the combo breaks, allowing an opening for the enemy to attack you. Often, if you were swarmed by a myriad of enemies, misclicking was an easy way for Geralt to revisit his mortality. As a Witcher, Geralt has access to a range of combat styles and abilities that are useful for dispatching various enemies. For direct combat, he has two swords, one of steel and the other of silver, to take out both man and abomination. Additionally, he can also equip one other weapon of your choosing, though I chose to bear a torch, as I didn't find the other weapons to be of more advantage over his default ones. Both the steel and silver swords also have 3 combat styles that need to be employed depending on the situation. For stronger, slower opponents there is the strong style, which sees Geralt deal out more damage. For more agile enemies there is the fast style that sees him attack with precision. Finally there is the group style, which is used when facing multiple opponents. It is important to make sure that you are using the appropriate style, lest you find Geralt once again with a mouthful of soil. In addition to armed combat, Geralt also has access to magic spells called signs that sometimes can also be used to control the environment. Of the 5 signs available, I only really used Igni, which casts a cone of fire before him, and Ard, which can be used to stun opponents or blast away debris. I sometimes also used Quen, which shielded Geralt from enemy attacks. On my playthrough, I didn't use the other 2 signs because I didn't find a need for them. As you complete quests and battle enemies, Geralt will gain experience that will level him up and grant him talent points that can be spent on upgrading abilities or learning new ones. Talent points can only be spent when resting at a campfire or on someone's rug. The skill trees are all extensive, but you are limited in what you can learn based on Geralt's level. For example, from levels 1 to 15, Geralt will only gain bronze talent points, with silver and gold being assigned at later levels. Thus, you need to carefully consider what will most benefit your playstyle, otherwise you may find yourself getting stuck in a combat situation that you cannot win, with the previous autosave being an hour prior to the current point in time. Basically, you really need to plan how you want to develop Geralt to make sure you don't disadvantage yourself later. Finally, Geralt can also use potions and bombs that he concocts during his rest time to enhance his abilities and defenses against certain enemies. Ingredients for these can be collected from slain foes, as well as harvested from the environment. The base for potions is alcohol, so you will need to scour every piece of furniture you come across to ensure you can always keep yourself well supplied. Though there are many potions available to concoct, I only brewed the ones that were of use to me. Swallow for healing, Cat for seeing in the dark, and Tawny Owl for endurance regeneration. Be careful with the number of potions Geralt consumes, however, as too many will increase his toxicity level, which adversely affects his combat skills. Toxicity can be expunged by resting. Speaking of alcohol, moist lips make loose lips, and I don't just mean in the bedroom. Geralt can consume the alcohol he finds either by himself or with those around him. Sometimes, if you want an NPC to loosen up a little, drinking them under the table is a great way to do this. Be careful, however, as Geralt's drunk state makes him stumble and causes the screen to shimmy and blur in a very unpleasant way, not to mention also inhibits his combat ability. If you are not near a resting point, you could soon see yourself with a headache and the inability to return Geralt to sobriety as he stumbles slowly through the streets of Vizima. Apologies for the interruption to this quality review, but we bring you some exciting news from Alchemist Kalkstein's lab. Is your hair dry and limp? Do you wish it could have the lustrous shine of a noonwraith under the summer sun? Do you want to bedazzle all your would-be suitors to ensure a quick, easy, and seamless trip to the sack? Well, look no further. Introducing Up and Hair Sway. Just one sip and your hair will take on a life of its own. It may even take off. Bursting with energy, we guarantee that your hair or beard will be the life of the party. One potion costs 800 orens. If you subscribe, like, or comment on this video today, we will offer you a bonus ballad from our sponsor partner Dandelion, guaranteed to keep you in everyone's memory long after the flesh melts away from your carrion bones. Order now and experience the wondrous changes to your hair as soon as this afternoon. Just think luscious volume, and one of our sorceresses will hear you and take your money. Order now as stock is limited. Kalkstein Labs do not take any responsibility for your hair growing a conscience of its own and eating your first child. Once purchased, orange will not be refunded. We may also take all of your money at our own discretion and leave you destitute. If you die after ingesting our potion, we claim the right to harvest any part of your body for alchemical practices, and your soul may not pass to the afterlife. Resting also plays the important role of moving time forward. How surprising! Characters in some events operate at different times of the day. For example, assassins will only try to kill Geralt within Vizima's temple quarter under the cover of darkness. Likewise, some enemies will only come out if the sun is at its zenith. I generally don't tend to like games that require you to be in a certain place at a certain time, though I appreciated that as a player you were given the ability to fast forward time whenever you rested, rather than the game forcing you to wait out real time in order for an event to occur. I'm looking at you, Ephemeral Fantasia. If you're looking for an idle way to pass the time, you may partake in the act of gambling, which has you bidding orens on the roll of 5 die in a spicy mix of poker and chinchirorin. Though I caution you to approach this activity with hesitation. Whilst it is possible to abuse the save system to ensure that you don't lose your money, the higher level professional players will often seem to get a higher dice throw than you, stripping you of your dignity, patience, and precious money. In the early parts of the game, I did find poker to be quite fun, but after losing many times, I dropped the activity entirely. Besides, gambling is an addiction, kids, much like Fistek. There are also fist fights that Geralt can engage in, but I thought him too much of a gentleman to stoop to that level, and only engaged in it when the story required it. The Witcher is entirely set around the city of Vizima, however the environments are very rich and varied. From the cobbled streets of the Trade Quarter to the pink blush of the blossoming Druid's Grove, there are a number of places to explore in order to further Geralt's ambitions and take him one step closer to his goal. Witches are also known to be intoxicating to those of a womanly disposition, so it's no surprise that Geralt collects sexual conquests as eagerly as a kid collecting baseball cards. It is an optional activity that you don't have to partake in, but I felt like rather than a Mass Effect or Dragon Age, Geralt is his own character rather than mine, so why refuse him his pleasure? Although I will say that I could have done without the nudity, and it appears not on just sexual conquest cards, but also some otherworldly characters that Geralt encounters within his journey. Must all divine or demonic beings resemble women bearing their breasts and loins? Like I just mentioned before, as the player you play as an established character, so I felt like I was playing the role of Geralt rather than what I wanted Geralt to be, if you get what I mean. The game uses the BioWare 2008 engine, which is well known for providing player choice in titles such as Mass Effect and Dragon Age. The Witcher is no different in this regard. Often as the player, you will be asked to provide an opinion on the events that are occurring in dialogue responses. Geralt's choices have far-reaching effects, so choose the way you wish him to respond, or who to help, wisely. In this way, the game has a lot of replayability, if you're into that kind of thing. Generally, once I beat a game, I move on to the next one. With almost 45 hours of playtime invested into The Witcher, I feel like I did give it a good go. One thing that I must really commend the game for, despite some of its glitches, is the way in which the environments have been constructed. Each area has a distinct feel and look to it, even within the sections of the city of Vizima. For example, you have the dilapidated streets of the Temple Quarter, which contrast heavily to the clean and wealthy Trade Quarter. I also love that the areas all had atmosphere to them. When it rains, citizens will run for the nearest cover, complaining all the while. In marshes, you will find little frogs jumping around, having the time of their lives.
Wish on the morning star. Somebody thought of that, and someone believed it.
While sometimes the NPCs do look rather dated, recycled, and have unnatural jerky movements, I can say that the environments hold up against the test of time. I enjoyed every minute of my long walk through the city of Vizima, and its surrounding areas. The loading screens being paintings depicting the area you were about to set foot into was also a nice touch that I admired and appreciated. The sound design also goes a long way into building the world and making the experience more immersive. Walking down the street, you may hear citizens either commenting on the weather, their own lives, or even making snide comments about Geralt. In more wild environments, you can hear birdsong, a cacophony of bat wings flapping a breeze, and even monster growls. Every step that Geralt took drew me further into the narrative with the expertly designed soundscape. Music also complements the game with a Renaissance feel, though there are a few tracks that feature women wailing, which doesn't surprise me considering what Geralt does to them behind closed doors. If I were to choose a favourite track, I enjoyed the one that plays when you get to Lakeside. The King Arthur legend vibe of that area of the game put a huge smile on my face. The Witcher is a game that many people will probably overlook due to the fact that it's often overshadowed by its successor third game. However, I would urge you to look at this gem at least once and give it a fair go. Whilst it does have janky controls and NPCs that animate in some surreal, almost performative art style, I feel like you'd be remiss to pass the opportunity to experience Geralt's dry humour, sarcasm, and eventual growth. It may not be as polished and experienced as later games by CD Projekt Red, but it exudes an aura of charm that will have you addicted if you just give it a shot into an easily accessible fold of skin. By the way, as I mentioned earlier, there are many PC exclusive games that I have yet to play. If you have any recommendations for games I should try, let me know in the comments. This has been Venoir reviewing The Witcher Enhanced Edition on PC. If you enjoyed this review, please leave me a like or consider subscribing, as it would help me out a bunch. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you all again next time. Bye bye for now.